This video probably won't be too long. It will be mainly just me rambling all the while adapting some of the designs to my style for the Ostara index. Again, thank you all so much to the people who submitted art for the competition. I seriously appreciate how much effort you all went into it and all the love that you put into them as well. And thank you to all the winners, for the amazing designs as well. I hope I don't butcher them to fit into the decks. And hey, if you're watching this and want to see more fake mono Pokemon and all that, sub to my channel. That way if there's another competition, you'll already be a little closer to winning. Yeah, no, let's just jump into it. First, let's begin with our new original Starmon. We will start with Wallaby, created by Vitality, which they had the style down pretty well already. With all of these, I had a goal to not only adapt them to my style, but also do it as a study for creating Pokemon closer in the style of official Pokemon art. I can't say I was constantly winning with this, but I think I got pretty close, and the newer Pokemon I've done since doing these, I can see the improvement. I didn't want to change too much with the design except a few proportional changes. The pose was perfect for what it needed to show, so I wasn't going to change anything about that. It's fun to get more poison fighting types into this world. Well, once it evolves, right now it's pure fighting, but I can see that poison type coming out of you. Wallaby, the drowsing Pokemon, a fighting type. Scientists are bewildered, unable to properly explain why it is always drowsy, despite spending most of its time asleep. One theory suggests a connection between Wallaby and Kamala. However, they don't seem that closely related. Though not an explanation for the weariness, observers draw links between the fighting styles of Wallaby and their parent Wallopy. Both unsteady and unpredictable, it is possible that Wallaby are practicing being in the befuddled state their evolution is after eating fermented berries. Wallaby's movements send opponents to sleep with how soothing and flowing it is. Wallaby have the abilities Unaware and a new ability called Dizzy Fist, where while confused, all attacks will land as a critical hit on the enemy. Once it evolves, it becomes our, second drunken Pokemon with Rugbeast and Pogon. Also, just being a bit drunkards too. They can hang out together and just be the worst. But not to say this design is bad, oh no, it's wonderful. I like how it combines both the animalistic side and something I sometimes struggle with in designs, and makes it a bit more monstrous. I like that it carries on much of the pose from Wallaby in the next form, and I can see the 3D model of this one just drunkenly stumbling around a bit like Spinder. You can see that I end up almost redoing the line art here, as this was something I needed to fix in the art, and I think the second iteration turned out much better. Wallopy, the woozy Pokemon, are fighting and poison type. Wallopy have an unpleasant taste for berries that are long past expiration. This has led to them developing a tolerance for the hazardous food and are now capable of eating nearly anything. Impatient Wallopy that cannot wait for their berries to ferment speed up the process themselves by producing bacteria to create the most foul meals. The stench afterwards lingers on their breath. Scientists say that the reason Wallopy go out of their way to eat something so dangerous is because they chase the thrill of the dizziness they get after such a prolonged binge. Wallopy's abilities are Unaware and Dizzy Fist. Okay, so let's go to the unique Ostaran evolution. This one was designed by Maya, and it's an evolution to a very early on Pokemon I created called Flipshock. A cockroach also based on a sandal, flip-flop, thong, whatever you call it, that's what it is. I honestly didn't think an evolution for Flipshock would be so good or needed, but Maya proved me wrong. Oh, so wrong. This idea was based off ogre spiders, obviously the classic thong, and more than anything those nanas who would use chunklers, which I found out means flip-flops, to attack. So this is a big old version of Flipshock with some really awesome monstrous design elements, who have these large claws that work great for hanging their Flipshock babies off it, and also using them as deadly projectiles, but Dragapult does that anyway, so it isn't that bad. I imagine Frofong would have a signature move which would just be a bug-type Dragon Darts. God, do I want to see the little Flipshocks being yeeted at enemies. I really love this design, and I hope I did the initial art justice. Frofong, the Temper Pokemon, a bug and electric type. It is rare to see a Frofong. Their evolutionary method means that only one in every 100 Flipshock evolve into this form. It is quite caring of Flipshock. Their hooked claws hold onto Flipshock as they dangle. Although cute, this also has a second use as a weapon. Due to Flipshock's durability, Frofong use their powerful arms to throw Flipshock like a weapon, causing both bludgeoning and paralysis. Frofong are not to be trifled with as they are incredibly short-tempered. It can be seen in the wild caring for other Pokemon species and throwing Flipshock at them if they misbehave. Frofong's abilities are Static and Anger Point. So from evolution to pre-evolution, I was surprised by this one because we didn't get one but 3 different Evos for Bogyip. Is he like a fan favourite or something, this ugly lad? But anyway, their pre-evolutions were all very cute, but I picked ultimately the design by Scarlet Illustrations. I really like how this one almost feels like a totem in a few ways. The parts connected look like carved wood, and I thought that was a really interesting design piece. And this one really connects the whole cute but disgusting feel that Bogyip also had. This one also has some real gremlin energy to it as well, where it would just be a stinky baby as well as stealing your food while in the swamp. And the dex entry for it was just so good. Just the fact that it's way too stinky. This one I also tried something you can see in many of the designs where I create a grey layer underneath, just to help separate the colours away so I can focus on the shadows and lights a bit better, which surprisingly is very key to the Pokemon art style. Bogag, the stink Pokemon, a grass and water type. Bogag has such a terrible stench that when someone passes by it, they have a chance of passing out. These Pokemon love to hide inside of Bogyip's fur so they can use their stench to knock out foes while Bogyip finishes them off. If you see a bush-looking blob in the water, wear a gas mask and just run out of there, so you aren't knocked out by Bogag then dragged into the swamp by their evolution. Trainers owning a Bogag will sometimes try to use air fresheners on the small blob, but it usually is a temporary solution as the smell slowly returns. Bogag has the ability Stench. And next category is an Ostara-informed Pokemon, and the winner was Pat with their awesome Lopunny. For this one I wanted to do a couple of minor changes, mainly in changing the colour of those browns ever so slightly, as well as add in some extra patterning and change the proportions a little too, all just for my tastes. Speaking of proportions, I struggled a bit with it too, making sure the face had the right wideness, as well as the eyes being large enough and space enough for it to work. I got there eventually, but my Sisyphean curse kicked in as I rolled the boulder up and just kept trying to redesign my own design. The purple on the original was too nice for me to change. I love a good purple, it's my favourite colour. Although I don't know if it was intentional, but I really liked the idea of Lopunny looking both sleepy and in pyjamas themselves, so I wanted to make it look in the final design like it was a little eepy, even holding its hand up ready for the honk shoo. Ostara and Lopunny, the rabbit Pokemon, are normal and grass type. Not native to Ostara, Baniri were introduced as Pokeball hunting sport. Between then and the modern age, their adaptation was to evolve and become a form that would mimic that of local plant life. Although even still, the plant life in question is also an introduced species. Its body contains spores hidden within pockets on their petals that they will puff towards enemies that can induce various ailments. Lopunny can choose the severity of it, but usually is inclined to paralyze the intruder. Their ears are filled with the most deadly of toxins and can be blasted out like a cannon in dire situations. This form of Lopunny have the abilities Cute Charm and Flower Veil. Alright, and for our final design of the video, it was for a Beast Paradox form for an existing Pokemon, and DeviantArt somehow knew exactly what I like. Appleton and Pterosaur like dinosaurs. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned how much I like them in videos, but yeah, these were just, amazing designs. Very realistic and awesome in their original art. So they would have to be a little proportionized, which is definitely a real word, don't you dare look it up, but I was very keen to do these. Appleton is such an easy way into my heart. It's one of my favourite Pokemon, and then just almost extending it and adding these little details, it's just great. I decided to shift the proportions to give it these massive stompy feet that taper out, which also helps give it that Beast Paradox perspective. I love the little garnish addition DeviantArt included on the top of the pie. I almost made it into just a Applin worm itself, but nah, I kept it as the garnish, it's just far too fun to change. My favourite part of this design is the eyes. One's looking up, but due to the perspective, the other eye going down is still visible and looking at you. This is a goofy fun Beast Paradox, I just love it. Beast Paradox Appleton, the long-necked Pokemon, a grass and dragon type. Due to Appleton's Ostaran form being quite aggressive, only this form of Appleton can compete. It adapted to Ultra Space by growing larger, able to tower over most and eat the most delicious of high-growing berries. Anything they eat is partially converted to a sweet-smelling nectar, within a lattice on their backs. This nectar attracts flying and bug types to help clean Appleton, and in return enjoy a feast. It has no aggressive instinct, casually walking along and feeding, 1-star threat. This form of Appleton has a new ability called Curing Nectar, where allies who attack this Pokemon will be healed of their status effects and regain 1/10 of their hit points. Alright, next we have Beast Paradox Flapple. Now a little spoiler, but I don't actually have Flapple in the normal decks. Well, you can't find it natively in Ostara, so reverting this form would be the only way to get Flapple here, and I think that's a fun workaround. I love me a flying dinosaur-like creature, and again, Deer in a Suit added all these amazing fun details. The apple fusing to almost become the top jaw, the back apple core just sitting in the tail with these really pleasing shapes, and the wings doing that thing that apples do if you leave them out for like 0.5 of a second. It all comes together to make a really fun design, and I enjoy how mine came out, especially trying to do a sort of happy-go-lucky Beast Paradox even with the deep dark shadows from below they normally have. I don't really like Flapple normally, but this design actually makes me really like him. Beast Paradox Flapple, the long-winged Pokemon, a grass and dragon type. Having no presence in Ostara, Applin in Ultra Space, who evolved into Flapple, quickly outgrew their apples and adapted to this form. Able to fly and soar from a standing point with their massive wings, allows Flapple to live in more enclosed, protected spaces, great for their young. Despite their confronting look, Flapple in this form is incredibly skittish and would rather hide or fly away if someone gets near. However, it does have some power behind their wings, and jaws, so it is classified as a 2-star threat. This form of Flapple has a new ability called Apple Armor, where using a grass-type move has a small chance to boost defense or cure status ailments. And that's all the winners adapted to my style, so thank you again to all the winners and submissions. So go check out the artists who originally made these, there'll be links in the description if you want to go check them out. As well as chuck little old me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Think fast, Chuckle Nuts!